In part 1 of this build, we made great progress. The time has come to complete this beast and get her ready for the road. We will also look at the total build cost. The build video wouldn't be complete without a weigh-in, so we'll be putting her on the scales shortly. Now, first things first, we had the old set of wheels installed so we could align the brakes and index the gears previously, but it's time for an upgrade. Enter the sleek Yoeleo 38mm carbon wheel set. Starting with the front wheel, undo the through axle, set the wheel aside. Now the rear wheel, slip it into the highest gear. That's the smallest cog at the back. It's just easier to get the wheel off that way as the chain is in a more manageable position. Undo the through axle and carefully glide it out. Time to remove the brand spanking new cassette from the old wheel and put it on the new. So first up, you want to get familiar with a few tools. The chain whip is there to grip the cassette lovingly. Then there's a Shimano cassette tool designed specifically with our 105 cassette in mind. And of course, either a spanner or a socket for the cassette tool. Now with the chain whip keeping your cassette company, pop in your cassette tool and socket and start the removal ceremony. Once you have removed every cog from the old wheel and drop them everywhere, as I always do, serenade them onto the new free hub on the new wheel. The lock ring follows, but tread lightly. Its threads are pretty delicate. You want to avoid any cross threading, otherwise it's a gloomy day in the shed. With the thread started, tighten it to 40 Newton meters, which for context is pretty damn tight. But before you give yourself a pat on the back, give the cassette a little wiggle. It should stand firm and stable. If it's rock solid, take a bow. If not, I feel for you. Something has likely gone wrong. It could be a missing spacer in between two of the cogs or a 10-speed cassette with no spacer on 11-speed free hub. Have a research, dig deeper to find the answer. Let me introduce you to the Shimano Ice Tech Rotors. Now here's a little confession. I buy them mainly because they are pretty damn good looking on the bike, but it's not just about looks. I'm not that shallow. They've got some substance too. I've never had any issues with them and performance is solid. They also come with the central locking nut, which for some reason some discs don't. It's like buying a toy only to realise the batteries aren't included. That moment when you realise I'm gonna have to go to the shop here and buy some batteries. Anyway, to get these beauties on, just slide the disc onto the wheel splines. The way they come together, let's just say it's kind of a mechanical romance.
I feel excited.
With them fitting snugly, I grab my trusty cassette tool. That's right, the tool that we use for the cassette is also the tool we use for the lock ring on the discs. I would most certainly be friends with whoever made that decision. Then you can tighten them up to 40 Newton meters, also the same as the cassette. Then it's like an instant replay for the front wheel. Slide, click, tighten. Now when you hear that delightful click of the torque wrench, you know you're done. The joys of installing GP 5000 tyres. Firstly, I found some inner tubes lurking in the shadows of my shed. It's always a good day when you can save a few coins by using up old spares. The GP 5000 tyres, they are actually legends. They grip delightfully. The punch resistance is very, very good, even through the London roads. I actually travelled 7,000 miles on a single pair before. I've stuck with them ever since for that reason. Now, a quick tip from the tyre tails. Rubber is more elastic when it's warm. No, I'm not suggesting a bake-off with the tyre in the oven. Just don't subject them to Siberian temperatures before install. Fresh out of the pack, give them a good old stretch. This is a full body workout, folks, so get your limbs involved and try and get those tyres limber. Now when installing them, orientation is actually key. You need to find the rotation arrow on the tyre and make sure it points forward. Just remember, it's a rite of passage to get it wrong at some point, so don't worry if you do. Get one side of the tyre over the rim. Then as for the inner tube, the first candidate's valve fell short and it wouldn't stick out enough through the actual rim and I wouldn't be able to get the pump on it. Not to be deflated. I scavenged for a replacement. Lo and behold, a relic from the 80s. Let's see if we can blow this thing up. Now to give the tube a bit of shape, I give it a couple of puffs of air. This helps with the install. Working the second half of the tyre onto the rim. Now this phase involves some dance moves, the wiggle, the pull, the yank, and a couple of twists. It's at this point you'd appreciate some builder's hands, but when that tyre finally concedes and slips onto the rim, I probably find it a bit too pleasurable. I'm ashamed to say that I've got a bead of sweat on my head. Ignore that bead of sweat. It was 29 degrees That's my excuse anyway. Now you'll notice I didn't actually use tyre levers, and that is because using tyre levers with carbon rims, it just sort of makes me cringe as you're sort of levering, just waiting to break something. Anyway, once the tyre has been convinced into place, I pumped it up to 100 psi, where they'll produce the most delightful pop. That is the bead hooking into the rim. I then release a bit of air and re-inflate it to the desired PSI. I'm a 75 PSI kind of guy for these 28mm tyres. As much as I'd love to torment you with another round of this tyre wrestling match for the second wheel, I'll spare you. But rest assured, I had fun. This one's tighter than the bloody first one. With the wheels all set up, we can get them back in place. Now with the through axle at the ready, slide the wheel back in. As soon as we kept everything in place, our brakes and gears should naturally fall back into alignment. And there we have it, everything checked out. Simple, efficient, and no fuss. Just how we like it. Next up, the new saddle. And by new, I mean I nicked it from the Rinner Scouter bike I put together a while back. Now to start, undo the clamp bolt on the Yoeleo's seat post. The key is to undo that bolt just enough so everything's loose, but not too much to the point where it all falls apart, resembling a DIY disaster. The EC90 saddle from AliExpress can slide right in. We can then tighten the clamping bolt and it's done. One bolt, no fuss. Next up, the bottle cage. That went on with the 2 bolts without a fuss. Next up, the GPS mount, so we can see how fast we are going and find our way back to the beaten track when we venture down an enticing country lane that slowly dwindles into an overgrown forest. Next, the bar tape. I have this Lifeline bar tape, which is cheap and cheerful. It comes with the finishing strips, which I won't use, and a little extra strip that sort of goes where the shifter is, which I probably will use today. I always have some electrical tape to hand and some scissors, because you don't want to put your back out reaching for things when you're doing the bar tape at the same time. You end up like this. Funky move, eh? We can start by rolling back the hoods to get some space to work. You don't want to cover any of these little grommets that keep the hood in place, so bear that in mind when you're in full swing wrapping. Start by doing a few rotations of the bar tape on the drop. Make sure the direction is from the inside to the outside, the way your hands naturally apply pressure. Do enough to hold the tape in place so you can install the bar end. The bar end for this tape doesn't have a screw lock, it's just a press fit. I wasn't sure at first, but after giving it a few love taps, it slid in with ease, and I think this thing is going nowhere. Also, when wrapping the tape, pull it nice and tight. We want pressure, my friends, we want pressure. When we get to the lever, I'm going to measure and cut this little extra strip to size and push it into place. I can then continue wrapping around the shifters. Now when you exit the shifters and you're happy with how it all looks, push the hoods back into place, make sure they fit, and check the coverage. Nothing worse than continuing, finishing off the bar tape, only to realise you missed a huge section. You want to be wrapping from front to back on the flat. Again, your hands naturally pull that way, and we want the tape to work with us. Once you are happy with the result, you can cut the tape down to size before applying electrical tape. You want the bar tape and the electrical tape to finish underneath out of sight. I tend to do 3 rotations with the tape to give it plenty of grip. One key thing to note is to make the gaps between the rotations the same on both sides, so it looks nice and symmetrical and satisfies the brain. Finish with the electrical tape and you are ready to grip your machine. What a treat. So how much did this beautiful contraption cost? Now starting with the Yoeleo R11 frame. This cost £1,224, which isn't a cheap frame compared to other frames that you can purchase directly from Asia. It's more affordable than Western frames, but still a chunk of cash. I also chopped one of these frames in half. Don't hate me, they asked me to do it. The wheels are the carbon Yoeleo SAT C38s. They are disc brake and they are the Pro version. They come in at £708. Again, I have a full review video of these wheels. Now, while I see £700 as a lot of money, for the bike industry, that price for carbon wheels is probably more on the affordable side. The bars are the full carbon Yoeleo H9 integrated bars. So far so good with these. Price on screen, can't remember right now. The group set is a 105 hydraulic group set, and that costs £430. Considering you get the shifters, brake hoses, crankset, cassette, brake calipers and the chain, this is actually pretty good value in today's market. It's also a super reliable group set from past experience, so I would definitely recommend. Now there are some smaller parts as well, such as the Jaguar compressionless gear cables. They are £25. The EC90 AliExpress saddle is another £20. The Lifeline bar tape was £10. Then we have the Shimano Ice-Tech rotors. They were £35 each, I believe, so that's £70 in total. And the GP5000 tyres that I swear by are £40 each, so that's another £80. There was no import tax on this frame or wheels, so I'll add another 25 on for shipping of various parts, and we get a grand total of £2,851. Now to me, that is a lot of money, but to the bike industry, this comes in at the affordable range when you compare it to high-end Western bikes at around the 10k plus mark. So yes, you could buy a bike off eBay for £500, but this isn't a comparison to those bikes. In my opinion, this Yoeleo bike can be compared to more of the top end bikes. So it's fair to say that it's affordable in the world of fully integrated carbon bikes with carbon wheels. But it's still £2,851, which could buy you a wide range of cars. You guys always give great comparisons to other bikes from Western brands, so please let me know your thoughts on the price and the value of this bike in the comments down below. So how much does she weigh? 8.31 kilograms, including pedals, bottle cages and GPS mount. It is ready to roll. Check out this video next for a full review on the Yoeleo R11 frame, and do subscribe to the channel to see a long-term review of this bike.